All right, let's chat about it. Let's keep going through this 2023 January camp roster wish list. We've gone through goalkeepers, we've gone through defenders. Now we got to talk about our middies and we got to talk about our forwards. Let's take a look at who we've got in the midfielder section. I'll be taking the lead on this one once more. Listen, a lot of usual suspects for me in this 2023 January camp roster wish list. If we saw them in 2022, they're going to be on the wish list for me. Midfielders, unshockingly to some, I've got Rose Lavelle, Lindsey Horan, Christy Mewis, Andy Sullivan, Ashley Sanchez. I want to continue to see these midfielders get into these camps and continue to see their play together. I want to see Taylor Korniak make her return as well. I don't know if the midfield is where this coaching staff is going to see her or continue to utilize her. She's been coming in pretty late in some of these game scenarios and asked to sort of float and hover around up top, but she's listed as a midfielder constantly for this coaching staff. So I'm going to have her listed in the midfield as well. I want to continue to see Sam Coffey in the mix for this. And similar to Tierna Davidson, I do not, I'm not 100% sold on the fact that this player will be available to get any type of match minutes. But if it's about recreating a World Cup experience, I absolutely have Catarina Macario included in this midfield list. I want to see this player with this team in New Zealand in January, if nothing else, to continue to establish the camaraderie that this team has established over the last 18 months. I think if Macario is in fact close to possibly making a She Believes Cup appearance or even post She Believes Cup appearance, I think you have to start integrating this player back into the environment. So I've got Catarina Macario listed on this as well.
I love this, Sandra. I like the midfielders that you've got here. I'm going to run through mine. Pretty similar, not identical, though. I'm going to put that out there. Of course, the usual suspects, Rose Lavelle, Lindsey Horan, Andy Sullivan, Ashley Sanchez. I also have Christy Mewis on this roster. She was not the first midfielder I named. No, she was one that I was looking to add a little bit more depth to the midfield, so I put her back on there. Sam Coffey, of course, this is a player that needs to get consistent time with the United States. She's built up that consistency and she's continued to develop. I think she's one of the contenders for that defensive midfield role against Andy Sullivan. And to have them both in this camp, in the January camp, traveling to New Zealand, that competition between those two needs to be elevated. There needs to be a chip on the shoulder there for both of those players saying, this is my position and I need to own it. That's the competition that I want to see throughout this midfield unit. And then I also have Taylor Korniak on my list as well. So she rounds out my 7 midfielders. I think that the minutes that she got in 2022 with the national team elevated her as a player, and to continue to give her those minutes and that time and that recognition with the national team will help her become a better player, but I think will also help the team, right? She just adds something a little different, even if it's consistently getting Korniak in the last 20 minutes of a game, the last 15 minutes of a game. It poses a lot of questions to opposition purely based on her size and what she's able to do. And I'm saying that as a player, as a former player, as an analyst, that there's so much more to Taylor Korniak's game than her size, 100%. But to continue to develop her foot skills and her vision and her awareness on the field and her ability to make runs and behind will only elevate her game. And then you add in the fact that she's over 6 feet tall. It just poses so many questions and challenges for opposition that it would behoove Vlatko Andonovski to continue to develop her. But I like our midfields. I mean, they're pretty consistent, right? I think that if this ends up being the roster, we haven't seen Vlatko Andonovski switch it up too much from a Horan, Lavelle, Sullivan, maybe a Coffey thrown in there, but that's what has been so consistent throughout 2022, and he wouldn't have done that over the last 12 months if he didn't think that was the midfield moving forward with this side. I also see in our chat right now, people joining us live on YouTube. Thanks so much. Drop your picks in the chat. We like seeing them. We like reading them. M. Wood saying, hey, I miss Sam Ewis. I miss Sam Ewis too,
Yeah.
but she won't be back. And I didn't add her on my
Yeah.
midfield roster for this because I think it's way too early in her recovery. There's players that you add to this roster that can get training time and training minutes when it's going to be beneficial for them and beneficial to the players around them. I don't think you bring in a Sam Ewis at this point because all she's going to be doing is rehabbing. And why travel her all the way to New Zealand when she can do that with her sports teams, her sports medicine teams right here in the United States where she is. But I think depending on when Sam Ewis gets back, we'll see her make her way back onto this roster. She's one of those veterans that brings that ability to the United States because she's been there and because she understands how to do that leadership role that she does so well.
I'm just I'm with you 100%. I just it's also just a different perspective right now when it comes to talking about the injured players who have been away from this roster pool. When it comes to talking about some of the players who might be making their return to this team in 2023, there's been different conversations and there's been different information when it comes to players and their timelines. So we've heard, like, for example, we've heard updates about somebody like Katerina Davidson. We've heard updates about, somebody like Katerina Macario, where we haven't necessarily heard a timeline or an update is with somebody like Sam Ewis. So because of that, I'm with you. I didn't have her listed in my midfields for this wish list as well. Now, if we're going like truly like shoot for the moon kind of wishes, like, 100% absolutely. If Sam Ewis is at a point right now to make a return to this midfield, 100%. Yeah, like I absolutely would love to see her in this as well. I would include Julie Ertz in this mix as well. There's a still like very loud, strong contingent of folks out there who are like, "Where's Julie Ertz?" And the truth is like she has been on maternity leave. She's being a mom, settling with family, and there hasn't been too much of an update around Ertz in that capacity either. So we do know that she missed the entirety of 2021 with a knee injury and in NWSL and played in the Olympics and wasn't 100% in the Olympics and then continued, to miss out on the NWSL season and then started a family. And that's really the only update for somebody like an Ertz. So it's like we're looking at some of the names that we're maybe making a return on this wish list of ours, but it doesn't surprise me that you or I didn't have somebody like a Sam Ewis or Julie Ertz in this mix as well, just because of those lack of updates.
Right. I mean, there are a lack of updates just so we don't know what's happening with them. I can assure you that Vlatko Andonovski has talked to those players, right? He's told that to the media. He said that he's been in communication with them. And I also think that this January camp is a little bit different than January camps in the past. And that's another reason why this roster is going to be 26 or under, right? I mean, that's why we pick 26 player rosters because they are traveling to New Zealand. That's a big travel. They have 2 friendlies that they're playing. Last year, January camp, the United States didn't compete against anyone outside of their team training squad. So that would be a moment where you bring in some of these players that maybe don't even have a timeline to return to the pitch, but just to get them back in camp, get them around the team, keep them within the United States. So I think the difference in a 2022 January camp where it was inter squad training only, no friendlies, no real travel, no travel outside the United States, you can have a little bit more freedom as a coach to bring in players that aren't going to see any time. Whereas this one, you're in preparation for a World Cup. You're traveling to the host nation of the World Cup and you're competing in 2 friendlies. You have to make some of those tough decisions when it comes to that. And I mean, not including Sam Ewis, not including Ertz, I'd love to see him there. I'm sure everyone would love to see them there, including Vlatko Andonovski, but it's not realistic to put them on this type of roster.
Yeah, I think you could also like maybe sort of have you could sort of like maintain that perspective when we're looking at the forwards, like who we might see on this, forward core throughout 2023. But I think for this January camp in New Zealand specifically, and this was tough for me because I was like, well, if I'm going like defender heavy, if I'm going more midfield heavy, there's not going to be a lot of room for a ton of forwards here. But I think at this point, I think the forward core for this player pool is going to remain smaller compared to maybe some of the other positional areas for this team that maybe the coaching staff might want more depth in the defensive areas or the middle third areas for this roster. And so it won't shock me if maybe the forward position is smaller of the other positions out there. So for me, when it comes to forwards, I think you've got not only your usual suspects. I think at this point, some of these forwards are locks for 2023 if all things remain the course. Like good form and healthy and fit. I think you've got Sophia Smith, you've got Mallory Pugh as the two essential players for this forward core going forward. I think Alex Morgan and her form in 2022 saw her return to this player pool, and if anything, it just re-solidified her presence amongst the forward core. I think they will still continue to keep Megan Rapinoe as part of this forward core going forward. A big chunk of 2022 was the discussion of her addition and her return back to the team. And I think sort of closing out 2022, where we saw Megan Rapinoe kind of like leading the flag a little bit to try to end that losing streak. It kind of, I think, reminded the coaching staff why they essentially brought this veteran
She
back.
proved herself. She proved herself in 2022.
Smith, Pugh, Morgan, Rapinoe. I've got those players amongst the forward core. And I was really, really torn in going back between two players specifically. I was really torn between Trinity Rodman and the return of Lynn Williams. This is another player that we have talked about in terms of the larger player pool that has been injured over the course of 2022. She's another one of these players that we had gotten updates on and saying like, hey, like perhaps this player is going to make their return in early 2023. I think Lynn Williams is one of those players that you can look at and point at and say, this was when we look back at this era, you're going to say like, this was the prototypical Andonovski player that this coaching staff wanted to see within the system. And just sort of looking at how this 2022 went for the United States women's national team, you could see that they missed a player in Andonovski's squad, like Lynn Williams. So I'm a little curious if we're going to see her as part of this forward court for this January camp. I would love to see it. But the thing is, I would also really love to see Trinity Rodman. So maybe it's not really 26 for me. Maybe it's really 27. Who knows? But I want to see
Lynn Williams. Add on players here.
Let's just add players as we're going. I'm the new FIFA overlord, and I say 30 player roster.
I mean, technically, this is our wish list. We can do whatever we want. You can add 27, 28, do what you want, Sandra.
Oh, no. Yeah, this is an absolute, like, making the most horrific choice. It's like, why would you ever want to choose between Trinity Rodman and Lynn Williams? But I'm also like, again, I had this list in mind where it's like, I don't know if we're going to see some of these players actually get minutes. So are we going to have like the return of a Tierna Davidson and a Lynn Williams, possibly a Katerina Macario, to go ahead and just make their return to a camp and not necessarily get actual match minutes? Possibly, like quite possibly. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little torn in this one.
So why choose between Rodman and Williams when you can just put them both on your roster? Because that's exactly what I did.
Well, who am I taking off? Then it's like, who am I taking off if I really want to keep it 26, right?
I have 7 forwards on my list, and I didn't have Mace as one of my defenders, right? We had a little bit of
take off Mace, right?
We had a little bit of a difference there. I mean, that's how I looked at it. I would rather have Lynn Williams and Trinity Rodman there. So maybe that means goodbye, Haley Mace. But my forward crew is pretty similar to yours. Sophia Smith, Mallory Pugh, Alex Morgan worked her way back onto this roster, proved that she deserves to be there. She's going to be a difference maker. Same goes for Megan Rapinoe. A lot of talk in 2022 about what she could bring to the team. And we saw her role pretty exclusively be this game-changing player that comes on in the final 20 minutes of a match and can lift a team up, can get them goals, can be that veteran. I mean, she's one of those players that there was some question marks about why she's on the roster, and she said to the world, I deserve to be here and this is going to be my role and I'm going to do it to the fullest. And I think she will continue to be on this roster through the 2023 World Cup. Rapinoe is going to the World Cup, I believe. I also have Trinity Rodman on this roster and Lynn Williams, and I put Kat Macario as my forward crew. So you had her listed as a midfield. I listed her as a forward. She plays both. She mostly plays midfield for Lyon, but I think under Vlatko Andonovski's system and the midfield that he has, especially between Rose Lavelle, Haran, Ashley Sanchez, Kat's going to be higher. She's going to be more of that withheld 9 that plays. And this is also a player that I doubt we will see get time. She won't play. Maybe she'll just be training non-contact. We don't know. I'm hoping for her to be there for She Believes Cup and get minutes from Catarina Macario. But that means that she needs to be called into this camp, get back into the swing of things, head to New Zealand, be with the team on these friendlies. And as we talked about it, if there are 26 players going to New Zealand, maybe he'll dress 23. Kat will not dress, but I want her back in the mix and I want her there. Similar goes for Lynn Williams. This is a player that's been working her way back from injury. She missed all, if not 99% of the 2022 season. We know that she was actually training at the NWSL final with Kansas City Current. So she was getting touches on the ball, getting back into the swing of things. And I think that, as you mentioned, Lynn Williams is a player that Vlatko Andonovski likes to have in his rotation. He likes what she brings to the field in her ability to get in behind opponents and to pop off the back line and back shoulder. I would love to see her play in the front line alongside Pugh and Smith, kind of see what the 3 of them could do together. So that's my crew. That's who I have. My 26. I didn't add a 27th. I just moved my roster around a little bit from what you put out there as well. But I wanted both Rodman and Williams there, and I was going to make it work. I was going to move the puzzle pieces around until it fit.
I feel you. No, I think there's a good case for, saying, hey, maybe we eliminate a Mace and then bring back on somebody else, right?